All right, good morning. Beautiful spring morning. First day of spring, even though it may not look like it with all the snow. But I'd like to welcome everybody. My name is Brooke Davis. I am the high school counselor in Edgar, and I'm also the at-large member of the Marathon County Alcohol and Other Drug Partnership Board of Directors. On behalf of the entire AOD partnership, we would like to welcome you today to the Youth Addiction and New Beginnings press conference. Addiction, a disease that does not care about your age, your gender, your race, where you live, or how much money you may make. When a person is caught in the web of addiction to alcohol and other drugs, it may seem like there's no way out. Right now, we are at a pivotal point in our community. There is a threat that is tempting and taking our youth, and that's alcohol and drug addiction. With us today, we have Dr. Shannon Young, a counselor and principal of WASA's Enrich, Excel, and Achieve Learning Academy, and she will highlight the importance of relationships between youth and adults, as well as share tips for families in talking about alcohol and drug use. Becky Bogan, juvenile intake supervisor with Marathon County Department of Social Services, will share the growing strain of substance abuse in the community, walk us through a systems response and current services, and plans in the works to address youth substance abuse. Deb Piscotti, a licensed counselor with Peaceful Solutions Counseling, will shine a light on the growing need of local specialized treatment for teens and young adults who are battling addiction and the differences that different factors influence youth and their recovery. And we also hear from Deb, who will share a mother's story of how heroin addiction has impacted her family and why she has dedicated her life to now continue to keep fighting not only for her child, but other children in our community. Today's press conference will conclude with sharing the AOD Partnership's newest endeavor, www.takebackyouth.org, which is an online resource for parents, caregivers, and anyone who is working with youth.
Good morning. As Brooke said, thank you for joining us this morning. We certainly appreciate having everyone here, as we know what an important issue this is that we're discussing this morning. As Brooke shared, we're going to be highlighting a few things this morning: the impact on the community of this issue, the treatment needs. You're going to hear a personal story from a parent to give you that vantage point of the struggle that we go through when our teens fall into this web of addiction. This most definitely is a community problem that requires a community solution. And one piece of that solution is strong relationships. Many of you may have heard the saying before that raising teenagers is like nailing Jell-O to a tree. There are multiple books out there. If you do a quick Google search, I knew that there was a book that related it to stating something on the effect of it's hard to hug a porcupine. And there are multiple books that relate that to those teenage years, because oftentimes when our teens start to struggle, one of the first things that they do is sort of bristle. And when they're bristling is really when they need the most love. And sometimes it's very hard to give them and show them that love when they're in that state. Hence, it's hard to hug a porcupine. So we know that one piece of the solution is strong relationships. There has been a lot of research done that indicates that there are risk factors for teens and individuals of all ages, and there are protective factors. And one of the very significant protective factors is strong relationships with adults. And I think sometimes we fall into the trap a little bit where we think that those relationships should come only from the parents. And that's, as many of us know, not the case. We need to focus as a community on how we can ensure that every one of our teens is able to build a strong relationship with at least one adult. Quite honestly, the more positive adults that we can pack around our youth, the better their chances, because they're not always going to want to talk to mom or dad or grandma or grandpa about certain struggles that they're going through. We need to make sure that they have strong, positive people that they can turn to, especially in times when they're making some difficult choices. Because quite honestly, in today's world, we like to focus sometimes on our at-risk youth. We're living in a day and age where every single one of our teenagers is at risk. They're at risk of making one choice that can change the entire turn of their lives. One choice can get them into a pattern that becomes very, very difficult to get out of. And that's why we're here today talking about addiction and really wanting to lay out the problem so that we all understand it and so we can all get involved in the solution. We know that there's a term out there that's used pretty regularly, well, I guess maybe not pretty regularly, but more in the clinical sense. We talk about self-efficacy. And self-efficacy really means how well do I feel that I can do something. I can tell you my self-efficacy surrounding soccer is not very strong. I can successfully avoid playing soccer. I'm able to do that. Parental self-efficacy is a very big indicator of what happens for our youth. And any of you who are parents know what a challenging job it is. So we can't expect parents to handle this all on their own. We need to be a support system together. And sometimes that means I do the best I can for my own children, but I also maybe see what I can do for the neighbor kid. We all have different ways and different places that we can impact youth and make sure that they get a couple really critical messages. The biggest message that we need to make sure that they hear is that they're cared for. They are cared for and they are loved. We also need to make sure that they know that they are going to make mistakes, probably many mistakes. And what we want them to do when they make a mistake is own it and work to fix it. But they don't have to fix it on their own. We're going to be here with them, helping them fix that mistake. Their mistakes don't have to be a lifelong event. We need to be the support system as adults to do everything we can to help bring them out of whatever mistakes they find themselves in. We want them to know that they can rebound. We can't do these things if we're not in good, solid relationships with kids. So we need to be critically mindful of where and how we can interact. It may even be smiling at a kid that you see in the mall. Because, I work with teenagers all the time, and they are a great age group to work with. Not everybody is entirely comfortable with them. And sometimes we get perceptions of them as a group that really aren't accurate. So we need to make sure we take the time to learn something about them individually and learn all of the amazing things that they do bring into their community. So allowing them the time and the place to really show us all the great things that they have to offer. But we can't get there if we don't first know them. So we are really encouraging you as one piece of this puzzle of how we solve this as a community to try to look for the ways and the places that you can get involved with some teens. It might just be one, but that's enough. Find out where you can build a strong relationship with a teen and how you might be able to support them through these growing years. We are now going to lay out exactly what the problem is and give you some more information so that you understand exactly what it is that we're dealing with.
Hello, I'm Becky Bogan. I work for Marathon County. I supervise juvenile justice. I'm going to talk with you a little bit today about the efforts that the county is doing to intervene and rehabilitate youth who have substance abuse issues. I'm going to talk with you a little bit about the impact to the county, to families. I'm going to walk you through the scenario of what happens when we get a referral. And lastly, I'm going to share some thoughts with you about ideas that may be helpful moving forward. So the first thing I want to do is acknowledge that approximately 60 to 70% of the youth that we work with have had some sort of substance abuse issue or currently have a substance abuse issue. When they get referred to us, we do a risk and needs assessment that helps us determine the level of intervention that they're going to need and helps guide us to look at pro-social skills and areas that are going to require some sort of intervention/service. I'm amazed at the number of youth that we speak with who say they have no substance abuse issues. And clearly, I'm beginning to question whether their definition of drug abuse is different than my definition of drug abuse. And the reason I say that is because when we initially ask youth about this, they will tell us that they have no alcohol or drug abuse issues. And as we continue to do motivational interviewing and ask them more questions, what we learn is there has been THC use. There has been use of prescription drugs that have not been prescribed to them. There has been use of cocaine, methamphetamines. And so I have to wonder whether it's a matter of just not wanting to share that information up front, or really our definition is differently. And so I think that's part of what we have to learn from youth is how are they defining drug use. The other part of this is that we know that some of the youth that we work with are coming from homes where alcohol or drug use is supported. Parents would rather have their youth using at home where they can monitor that. So we have to pay particular attention to that and wonder about the message that youth receive from this in terms of the acceptance of using alcohol or drugs. When we take a step back and look at how this impacts our county, Marathon County spends approximately $700,000 in programming. This is some sort of programming that is either about prevention, intervention, or rehabilitation. And along with those dollars spent, we have money that comes into play in terms of social workers working with families, the court system, our judges, our district attorney's office, our public defender's office. So it's more than just the programming that impacts the cost that the county is helping to provide intervention in, but it also is in those service providers that are engaged with the youth. One of the things when working with youth that we really do work to do is keep youth in the home. If we can seek service in the community, that's what we want to be able to do, because we know that that youth has to return to that home at some point in time. So it's better for us to work with the youth and the family. However, at times, out-of-home placement does become necessary. And I want you also to understand the impact of that out-of-home placement. So not only do we remove a youth from their home and place them someplace else, it impacts their academic success and it impacts that family unit. A fiscal impact of that is a treatment foster home can range in the $1,500 range per month. If that youth needs to go into a treatment facility, it costs up to $10,000 per month. And in that variance, we have group home, and there's also correctional care. And some youth who do abuse substances continue to create law violations to the point that they become so unsafe to have in our community that they do have to be removed from the community. What is Marathon County doing to try and intervene and rehabilitate? There's a spectrum. So one of the preventative areas that I like to think about is truancy citation court. Youth who are having problems attending school, school districts can go into the court and ask the judge to have the youth participate in a drug and alcohol abuse screen if they're engaged in truancy citation court. As part of that, that youth can have that screen, and as a result, the youth may be required to participate in further education related to drug and alcohol abuse, or they can be required to participate in treatment. If a youth commits a law violation and they're referred to the Department of Social Services, and we complete that assessment and we determine that they need further intervention, sometimes what we do is we counsel and release those youth, but we talk with the parents about the services that are available in our community. Sometimes kids need more than that. And what we do then is we have the ability to work with them under what we call a deferred prosecution agreement. And that's an informal agreement made between the department, the child, and the family. And there's specific rules that need to be followed along with specific treatments that they need to participate in. That usually lasts for about 6 months of overseeing that. If a youth needs more than that, a referral can be made to the district attorney's office, at which point in time things become much more formalized and a youth needs to go before the judge. That generally lasts for about a year. And again, there's specific rules and specific treatments that need to be participated in. Along with that court involvement comes a new level of accountability. So if the youth is not following that court order, they can be made to go back into court and receive what we call sanctions. And that is where the youth may be placed on an electronic monitor. They may be sent to shelter or secure. And sometimes they receive services through a report center. As part of this, we also do urinalysis testing, and we can do breathalyzer testing when necessary. So as you can hear, there's legal ramifications, there's fiscal implications, and at the end of the day, what we know is oftentimes the youth who have drug and alcohol abuse issues that we do not reach, we try and provide that intervention, we see them go into the adult system. And that is extremely sad. Kids who have hope, who have a chance to turn it around, those are the kids that I'd like to know what we can do differently with. What are we missing? What sort of programming do we need that's not reaching these youth? I think one of the saddest things that I see is opening up a blog about youth who have been arrested. Well, it's not deemed youth who have been arrested, but if I look on a blog and see the crime gallery and I see a name of a youth that we've worked with, and I have to think about, how did this happen? Did we fail? Is there something else we could have done? And I have to recognize that it's not the Department of Social Services alone. As you said, Shannon, it's adults partnering with youth, it's community providers looking at the services, and it's coming back to say, if our data shows that we're not having the outcomes that we need, what do we need to do differently? Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's look at programming that is effective and bring that to Marathon County. So a couple thoughts on where we go from here. We know that many of the youth who come into the juvenile justice system have had some sort of encounter with the child protection system. So somewhere along the line, there were some concerns about neglect or abuse. We tend to see those youth then come into the juvenile justice system. And then unfortunately, some of those youth tend to go on to the adult system. So we can see that spectrum and having to go back and look at, again, at what sort of intervention we can provide. In Wisconsin, youth at the age of 17 are considered adults. So at 17, we have young people who are currently going to jail because of substance abuse issues. So there is a large effort in Wisconsin to change that law and have it changed back to 18. And that's been in the works for a few years. So definitely we need to continue to think about that. Another area that we need to think about is interrupting that generational cycle. We have many, many social workers who have been with our agency for a number of years. And they've worked with parents who then go on to have children, and those children are referred into our agency. And when our workers worked with that parent, they knew the grandparents then. And so we can continue to see those issues passed down from generation to generation. Again, we're missing something because we continue to see it carry on. The last thing that I think would be important to consider is evaluation of whether or not a juvenile drug court would be beneficial to our county. And so I think one of the things that I am part of currently is a partnership for youth. It's a coalition that's recently been established, and that's been great work and partnership from United Way, Social Services, the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Club, really coming together to partner and say, how do we together as a community impact our youth? And then we, of course, have opened that up to community providers and parents to become part of this coalition to work towards change. So I'm excited about opportunities, but I'm also realistic that we need to do some things differently to get better outcomes. And next, we'll be hearing more about services.
Good morning. I'm Deb Piscotti, and not only am I a licensed mental health counselor at Peaceful Solutions, I'm also the AODA clinical supervisor there as well. And so Melissa asked me to speak a little bit about, from a treatment perspective, what are the needs that we are seeing within our community. Well, I can tell you I've only been with Peaceful Solutions for 2 months now. And during that time, I have started to work with adolescents through the Choices group at Peaceful Solutions. And here's what I'm seeing. When we look at the addiction landscape, we're seeing a trend of younger and younger kids that are using riskier behaviors and drugs. For example, 14-year-olds using meth, 16 and 17-year-olds using IV heroin. The fact is that our kids are starting younger, and they're also starting with things at home. For example, whether it's alcohol, tobacco, maybe it's marijuana, prescription drugs. One of the things I think that's important for us adults is that we need to start having conversations earlier with our kids and more often about drugs and about what they can do and how harmful they are. Because the fact is that if we wait until they're using the hard stuff, it's really too late. Polysubstance abuse, that's another thing that we're seeing. We aren't just seeing the use of one drug. We are seeing multiple drugs being used at the same time. So we are seeing some really high-risk behaviors. Another question I got asked is, why do we need specialized treatment? Well, for adolescents, their brains aren't fully developed until they're 24 or 25 years old. And so they are doing significant damage to the prefrontal cortex of their brain. So this is really important. That's the part of our brain that's doing abstract thinking and being able to make logical, well thought out, rational decisions. And so it's impairing their ability to make those good decisions. It's not that they don't want to, it's that literally they can't if they are impaired by drugs. And also I think another piece of it is that kids, I remember being a teenager, and kids think they're invincible. They're stubborn, and I like how it was put earlier that it's like trying to hug a porcupine. What are local options for treatment, including youth? Well, we have the JCIP, which stands for Juvenile Cognitive Intervention Program at North Central Healthcare. And we also have the Choices program right now at Peaceful Solutions. There's actually 2 separate groups at Peaceful Solutions. We have the low risk, working more with truancy cases and so on, and doing a lot of education. However, don't let that fool you, because these kids are also already actively involved in substance use. And then also the high-risk group, that's really looking at more high-risk behaviors and addressing things like polysubstance abuse, etc. One of the things I also think about is the window of time. 10 years ago when I started, longer ago than that, but 10 years ago I could see the window of time. We had a lot larger window of opportunity between, I should say, a window of, from the time that somebody started using experimentally until the time that they were full-blown in their addiction was a lot longer. We're talking years. But as we have worked with people throughout the years, and also as I'm looking at kids now, that window has closed, and we have gone from years in between first experimentation and full-blown use to months. And we're seeing a lot riskier behaviors, and by that I mean using methamphetamine and using heroin and IV use. And so this is really a very significant change for the drug use that we're seeing going on. So I did some collaborating with some of my colleagues in the community and said, put it out there. What are we seeing as needs in our community? Number 1, ready access to evidence-based child and adolescent services, including psychiatry, mental health counseling, family counseling, and substance abuse treatment with follow-up. Another need, readily accessible inpatient mental health and substance abuse services for those children and adolescents who need them. And the fact is that we need them in our area, not hours away. We need peer support for both adolescents and their parents. And we need solid links both with and within the schools to allow for early identification of those individuals who need services. I'm just thinking versus detention or expulsion, as well as ongoing support for those individuals who are in need of services. The reality is, as I think about it, is our children, the children of our community, are our number one responsibility and our greatest assets. They are not someone else's problem. They are someone else's child, and they're our future. As such, I am challenging our community to think of all of the youth in our community as our children. With that in mind, it's imperative that we put forth the resources and the energy to establish ways of meeting their needs. Therefore, I'm putting out a call that we think about it this way. Have you heard the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child? It also takes a village to help someone get sober and stay sober. And so this is everybody's job. It's not just one person. It's not just the parents, or it's not just the teachers or the treatment provider. It's our responsibility. So I'm asking that we all pull together as a community to fight this monster we call addiction and to give hope to those who are battling their own addiction. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Deb. I am a mother who waited 13 years to have a child. I wanted to bring that child into a secure, loving home with parents that were totally committed to raising that child in today's world. I am a mother whose life was changed when that child was born in 1990. She quickly became the center of her parents' universe, and she was a special gift to her grandparents, who really wondered after 13 years whether or not they would ever see a grandchild from me. I am a mother of a child whose smile was bright and whose heart is tender and kind. I am a mother of a child who was lovingly cared for by her aunt until she was 2 years old. She then entered the Montessori school program where she was cared for and she thrived through kindergarten. I'm a mother who always felt the need that my child attend a parochial school despite never having attended one myself. I felt that she needed to have a foundation of faith to build her life on, and that foundation was built during her grade school years. I am a mother of a child who consistently earned academic excellence awards, red and white ribbons, throughout junior high, who excelled in and who loved sports of any kind. I am a mother of a child who was involved in Sunday school, vacation Bible school, confirmation camp, and youth group. I am a mother of a child that became a leader in those very same vacation Bible schools and youth group herself that she attended. I'm a mother of a child who went on a mission trip in 2005 to New Orleans. I worried every day that that child was gone during that volatile hurricane weather season. I'm a mother of a child that came home in 2005 from New Orleans mere days before Katrina struck. Katrina struck one of the 5 deadliest hurricanes in the United States, destroyed the town and the home for abused women and children that my child was working in and had just left. I am the mother of a child who still holds dear to her a little car that was given to her by a little boy that she cared for during the time that she was there, despite to this day not knowing whatever happened to him. I am the mother of a child who went yet on another mission trip to New Orleans 2 years later to help rebuild a ravaged town and help restore an elderly woman's uninhabitable home. I am the mother of a child who started working at the age of 14 and held 2 jobs by the time she was 17. I am the mother of a child that suffered a serious knee injury during her favorite sports game, an injury so serious that there were only 14 documented cases. I am the mother of a child whose surgery and recovery was extensive, only to be followed by yet another. I'm a mother of a child who earned her CNA license while in high school and graduated early so that she could begin her planned career path to nursing. I am a mother who had promising bright hopes and dreams for her child. We celebrated those hopes and dreams as a family with a graduation trip to Mexico in 2008. I am a mother of a child who had many, many opportunities and loving support and a family, and also had the opportunity to purchase her grandmother's home at the age of 20. But I am a mother that did not know the power of prescription painkillers had become a ruling factor in my child's life. I am a mother that helplessly watched the successes and the failures and all the positive things in my child's life unravel before me, not knowing why and not knowing what I could do about it. I am a mother who in 2011 horrifically found her child in the bathroom shooting heroin into her arm on her father's birthday. I am a mother who knew nothing of heroin other than it was a drug of the 1960s and the 1970s. How could this be my child? How could this be in my home? How could this be happening to my family? But more all, how could I not know that in 2011, and today is 2014, Wausau was in the midst of a heroin epidemic? I am a mother whose hopes and dreams turned to daily prayers for my child's survival. I helplessly watched as my child lost herself and I lost my child to the power of opiate addiction. I am the mother of a child whose choice to say no was stolen from her by opiate prescription painkillers. I'm the mother of a child whose youth was taken from her by the most powerful opiate of all, heroin. But I am a mother who God has answered her prayers, because you see, my child has been saved from death by the grace of God. I'm the mother of a child after several failed treatment attempts found the strength and the desire to take back her life with the support and the guidance of Wausau Health Services methadone-assisted treatment program. I'm the mother of a child who last semester was named to NTC's President's List for Academic Excellence. And I am a mother that wakes each day to give thanks and praise for the day before, praying for the faith and the strength each day to believe that God will not let me find my child dead with a needle in her arm when I walk into the next room. Because you see, that's how it will be. That's how it will be in my life and in my child's life and in my family for the remainder of our lives here on earth. Opiate addiction is a disease that will never be cured. It should not be stigmatized as anything but a disease. As with cancer, the disease will always be part of our life. It is no longer a choice, but it will always be there waiting, tempting to take my child again. I am a mother that has been involved in any way that she can to push back against drugs from the very beginning, to push back against drugs, drug dealers, and the darkness that is consuming our city. It's spreading across our nation like napalm, as some would say. And it's taking families and destroying lives in the process. Now, I will not look back. I will not look back, and I will not ask why my child. Nor will I fear that I am too small or I am not strong enough to fight to make a difference for you children, you young children, my children. I believe that I can give someone light in the midst of the darkness that is consuming our nation. I will push back that darkness, believing that our city should and can shine like a star. I am a mother who will fight to take back what right now, at this very moment, in the midst of our families, in the midst of our city and our nation, we are losing to prescription drugs and heroin, in addition to meth, cocaine, and every other cocktail that is out there, our youth, and almost my child.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank the presenters, the media, and it's evident to me that we need to come together. We need to come together as people in the schools. We need to come together as parents, as caregivers, as community members to help our youth. It is our call for action. And I think one thing that we need to realize is that the resources are there. The resources are there for everybody at whatever level they feel comfortable getting those resources. The stigma for addiction is huge. And I know that the Pushback campaign has done a lot, but we still have a long way to go, which is evident, because our youth are our future. And as a community, we need to help our youth. One thing that I would like to mention, and it's shown here behind me, www.takebackyouth.org. It's a website, really a support network. And this is designed for parents, caregivers, community members, adults that are concerned about a loved one or somebody in their life, maybe a neighbor, a friend, that they suspect may be using drugs, or maybe they know are using drugs or alcohol. So our mission is to connect everybody to resources, education, identification, treatment, recovery, and support services for our youth. I think this site, I know this site is valuable, and I'd like to think of it as more of a one-stop shop. You can find resources about support, about recovery, about addiction, and it's all in one spot. And one thing that's very important to recognize is that this would not be possible with a lot of partners. Marathon County Alcohol and Other Drug Partnership, also with support from the Pushback Against Drug Abuse Initiative, St. Andrew Lutheran Church, Wisconsin Department of Justice, and the United Way of Marathon County. And this is a work in progress. As we get more information, as we get other resources, they will be added to the website. And I guess one thing I would like to say is, this is just the beginning of building support for the community to help our youth. We need to understand that addiction is not a moral weakness. It is not about a faulty upbringing. It is a disease, and it's something that can be treated successfully. It's up to all of us to take care of each other and to take care of youth. A line from Dr. Seuss, he's always a good person to quote, right? The Lorax. So unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. So you are not alone. Prevention works. Treatment is effective. And yes, people do recover. So we invite you to visit the takebackyouth.org or the AODpartnership.org for more information and how you can get more involved to help our youth. Thank you. Are we going to get into the...
We could probably conclude, and if there's any questions.
Sure. Any questions? We are concluding. I'll do my best to answer, but I might need your help, but okay.
Is there a sense that one of the things that's needed in the community is inpatient treatment availability for teenagers? I thought that was kind of a kick here today.
Right. I don't know, Deb, do you want to...
Deb, can you go to the podium and answer that question?
What was that?
The need for inpatient treatment for youth.
The need for?
Yes.
Okay, what was the question?
What do we have now for anything resembling inpatient treatment for teenagers, and do we need to beef it up?
To my knowledge, we have nothing in the Wausau area. The closest that we have is Libertas in Green Bay. And unfortunately, one of the criteria for that is that adolescents go voluntarily. And I find that unfortunate because, again, you can't always hug a porcupine. The dial, that's pretty much it, is Libertas in Green Bay.
You're not sorry they go voluntary, you're sorry that it is voluntary.
That we can't actually have it, because a lot of kids aren't going to want to go. I mean, am I speaking out of line here? But this is their welfare we're talking about. And so it has to be voluntary. The only way that Libertas will take an adolescent is if they go voluntarily.
There's no way now, 16-year-old heroin addict, there's no way they could be
Compelled
or compelled to receive treatment.
You guys aware of any?
I mean, unless they're in crisis and are actively suicidal.
So crisis situations.
Risk to themselves, risk to others.
Can I have you go to the microphone?
Yeah, come on up here, Lori.
There's a microphone for public access up there. We want to make sure we collect all this richness.
There you go. Go for it.
It's the legal stuff. If an adolescent or any individual is brought in to the healthcare center, to the crisis unit on a mental health commitment, which is a 5115, which is a legal law term we use for commitment, they're brought in. Once they're admitted, once the admitting psychiatrist agrees to have them come on the unit, then we have 72 hours to really spring into action and find out everything that we can do. The first 12 to 24 hours is probably the most critical for us. As a clinician and a treatment team at the healthcare center that works that unit, it is a very, very busy time for us. We are gathering as much collateral or information about this individual as we can possibly gather. Where we start to hit the wall is when individuals aren't honest in bringing information forward about the adolescent, and that tends to halt what we can do at that point. Then we have to, in order for a commitment to stand, we take it to court, and the court has to deem that there is enough dangerousness to self or others in order for this person to be held on a commitment. Just because someone is committed doesn't mean they're going to stay in a unit unless the court deems adolescent treatment center is the route to go. Sometimes they do ask us our opinion on where and how this individual should be treated. That is the quickest and easiest way to try to get somebody services. Trying to get somebody committed on an alcohol and other drug abuse commitment is very, very difficult in the court system. Very few individuals will be given a commitment under alcohol and other drug abuse. If we can tie it to mental health, if it was a suicide, if they come in on an attempted overdose, attempted suicide, and we can pull enough information together and do a mental health commitment, even though we know there's alcohol and other drugs involved, we can try and get a mental health commitment, which is a bit easier. It's still not easy. It's just a bit easier than an alcohol and other drug abuse.
To themselves is a possible justification for a continuing commitment as well as the danger to others.
We have to prove that this individual poses a danger to themselves and others.
Would a police officer bring a young adult or a youth down to the healthcare center if they're high, suspected that they're not threatening or not
Oh,
suicidal?
sure. That happens all the time.
They would, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We receive.
Under the 50,
Yeah. Anyone who comes in, if they're not under a current commitment or settlement within the county or another county, is on the unit. If they come in, they can come in voluntarily. And that gets, we can do that, but if they can also leave if they so choose. At that point, the treating psychiatrist can deem a director's hold on the individual if the treating psychiatrist believes that they're posing a danger to themselves or others. Then we do have another option. And it all sounds good, but even adolescents needing inpatient treatment, like Deb Piscotte had mentioned, we cannot, and we have a difficult time holding adolescents on our inpatient unit because that unit is designed for adults. We also get a lot of individuals on the unit that may be sexual offenders. We cannot, nor do we want to hold out adolescents on that unit at the same time. If we need to for a short period of time, 24, 48 hours, we will. I can tell you, being part of that clinical team, at 8 o'clock every morning, we spring into major action for about, we are in high gear for about 6 hours. I tell everybody when I'm on the unit, I'm nowhere else. I can't take calls, I don't look at anything. That's all I do. Because I know I only have a very brief period of time to try and get services for the individual. So, thanks.
Is there any other questions for our speakers? I'm sure the speakers will stay around for a few minutes if the media would like to have one-on-one interviews. So thank you again for coming, and that concludes our news conference.
Make sure there's a lot of materials over here. Grab a funky pen as well. But help yourself, take whatever you'd like. Take as many as you'd like, what you'd like, not the pens though. Thank you for coming. Enjoy. Happy first day of spring.